I recently celebrated my birthday in my 5th grade classroom. They're laughing because my birthday is in July. As is our class custom, I was asked to bestow some birthday words of wisdom. And I shared this quote from the great American humorist Mark Twain. "A man who grabs a cat by the tail learns something he can in no other way." Simply put, we learn by doing, whether it is pleasurable or painful, simple or difficult. Since the standard is to create an emotionally safe culture of learning that promotes intellectual risk-taking, I sought ways in which to create this structure. Certainly as the instructor, I have a place in setting up norms and expectations, but like any cultures, its values must be permeated by its citizens. For the sake of sustainability, the values that I wish for my classroom must be claimed by my students. Like a child who starts to claim the values of their parents as their own, it was my hope that my students would adopt what is needed to create safe space. The value of Torah is claimed only when we recognize that it is lo bashamayim, not in heaven, but ours in our hearts. So how did I try to do this? As some of you know, I have been experimenting with open discussion in my classroom. I have been trying to actively give my students the skills and language to talk and learn from each other in a respectful and helpful manner, and then I have removed myself from the discussion entirely. It is of course not perfected, but I have been humbled by the way they interact. The level of student learning and general discourse has been tremendous, and they have begun to stake a claim on both the text and their classroom. They have begun to understand the potent power of what they have been examining in Tanakh, the power of pet el pet, mouth-to-mouth speech. They have started to create a culture where they can be heard, where they can take risks. Last snapshot, I talked about what I could do to try to get my silent student to speak. I have come to the realization that it may depend on my silence to their questions. If I can update an old Hebrew proverb for the modern teacher, a word is worth 1 shekel, silence 2, then, well, what do you think is worth a small fortune? Certainly it is my role to give a base of knowledge to my students, and if I can quote my mentor, I am not interested in uninformed opinions. But a classroom culture of risk-taking must be filled with the sound of students, not a voice from on high. The question remains of what will I do next? At this point, and the level my students are at, I know that I'm still needed as a presence. How do I get my students to call this classroom and its culture their own? How can I lead without lording authority? Shimon ben Gamliel wrote, "Behold, I have been raised among the great scholars, and I have discovered that there is nothing more becoming a person than silence." I have never in my life looked at this quote from the perspective that it is the teacher who must be silent until now. This is problematic for me because, as I've often said, I am a smooth talker without the smooth. So I must hold this charge close. Emor ma'at, aseh הרבה. Say little, do much. I hope in the next semester and in the future, my classroom is filled with the constant having of wonderful ideas. That my students create for themselves their learning culture in safety and security, so they may grab cattails and not coattails. I hope to continue taking small steps back so that my students can take great strides forward.